Hi, Run Your Story family. This is Allison Gilliard with Run Your Story, where every story needs to be heard. And what a story with runner and author of Into the Storm, Greg Phillips. Absolutely phenomenal. You guys are going to love this book. You're going to love his story because he shares about how that moment that clicked for him that he needed to make a lifestyle change and what led to all the things that he has done, from running to writing a book to being an ultramarathoner to running 100 miles. Guys, you are going to be amazed by him, and I highly recommend his book. So definitely go out there and pick it up. And I cannot thank Greg enough for his story, for what he brought. It's absolutely incredible. Greg, you and your family are just champions, is all I gotta say. And one of the things that we talk about is how we cannot cross the finish lines without our crew chiefs, without our people being there, making sure that we're okay, or making sure that we have everything we need mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Like, I've been in those situations where I didn't think I was going to be able to even run that day. And my crew chief, my husband, was like, "You've got this. You've done harder things. Get to it." And so it's so imperative that we have that support system, especially on the days where we want to give up. We have that person in that corner fighting for us when we don't have enough energy to fight for ourselves. So Leslie, I just want to give you a shout out because Greg just raves about you so much, not only in the book, but also in his story. And so just what an incredible couple that you guys are. And I'm so excited for this book, for everyone to read it, but also for everyone to hear your story. And also, one of the things that I took away from this, and I'm very thankful Greg said it, was that, you know, we don't compare ourselves to others because we don't know where they are in their journey or in their story, what chapter they're in. But you compare yourself to yourself. And that was the person you were yesterday. And that has just really stuck with me and has challenged me. And I took that away from this interview. And so I am eternally grateful for Greg for all that he has brought to the running community and with this book. So Into the Storm, which Greg runs into storms, guys. So he loves it. You guys are you're gonna hear that he is hardcore. That's all I gotta say. So Greg, thank you so much for your story, for writing this book, for sharing your heart, and for becoming the runner that you are. Absolutely incredible, my friend. Super thankful for Gilliard Tech Services for all of that great Gilliard does for Run Your Story, from building our website to updating it to editing the podcast. He is a man of all the trades, and I am so incredibly thankful that he believes in Run Your Story. He loves the running community, and he loves hearing your run stories. And so if you're looking for an updated website, or you have no idea what kind of website that you want, contact Greg Gilliard at Gilliard Tech Services. He builds clean, modern sites. And guys, right now, since he's a teacher, he is on summer vacation, but he has been working. So he is nonstop on websites. And this is the perfect time to reach out to him. So if you've been on the fence, definitely reach out to him. He would love to have a consult with you and just kind of sit down and hear your thoughts, and he can help you figure out what kind of website you need. So just go to GilliardTS.com. That is GilliardTS.com for more information. You can also go to Run Your Story as well on the website, and his information is there. We are so thankful again for all that Greg Gilliard does for Run Your Story. We could not be where we are today if it was not for the gifts and talents that he's poured into Run Your Story. All right, guys. Lace up those running shoes, get ready, get set, and go run with my friend Greg and his run story. Greg, thank you for being here today. I'm so excited. One, because I've got to know you, because you've written a book.
Yes.
And then I got to go hear you speak about your book, and I was like, we got to get you on the podcast. So we're going to talk about your book, which is great. Also such a great read as well. So it's not
thank you.
Crazy vocabulary. Let me just say,
yeah.
I think it's like a great book for any runner or anybody that wants to do something hard and scary.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely, I would say it's on that caliber. It's a great gift to get somebody. So and read.
Yeah, hopefully the book can help someone. If it can just reach out and just help one person, then all the work was absolutely worth it. So
well, I'm really excited to talk about that and to talk about your run story. So I got to hear a little bit about it at your book reading. That was at Redbeard.
Yes.
So what is your run story, Greg?
So my run story is a little bit probably different than most people. I don't have a background in endurance running or any kind of long distance sports. I grew up playing football most of my life, and as well as a lot of other sports, but football really became the focus of my life. So my workouts, my running, everything I did was really tailored to trying to be the best football player that I could be. And a football field's only 100 yards long, so any runs longer than 100 yards usually didn't happen for me. So now for me to be an endurance athlete, to run long races is something that's new. And earlier in my life, definitely did not expect. But growing up playing sports, you naturally develop a level of mental toughness and perseverance and work ethic and all those characteristics that we want to teach our kids and that you hear a lot of people talk about. But what I found was that when you get away from whatever sport or activity you're in that has developed those traits, you don't just maintain it. It's just like if you exercise and work out and you get in good shape, you don't just stay in good shape because you once got there. You have to continue to maintain that level of fitness. And it's the same thing with the mental characteristics of mental toughness and resiliency. Those skills start to diminish and go away if you don't maintain them and if you don't continue to put the work in. And that's what happened to me. And my run story really, after college, long story short, I got away from that life and my life got comfortable, which in turn turned into a lazy life. And then one day I woke up and decided I needed to fix it. And that's a long story we can get into if you want to, but eventually it ended up, as I worked to get myself back on the right path in a better place, it led me to this crazy world of ultra running. So anyone who knows me would never have looked at me and said, you know what, that guy's going to run ultras one day. No, that would never have happened. And so it's even somewhat surprising to me, even to this day. But I got into it, through a different avenue than most people. I didn't run cross country or anything like that. So it happened later in life. I wish it would have happened earlier. I'm just curious to see what I could have done or how well I could. And I'm trying to figure that out now still. I'm not saying that it's too late in life, but I do wish I would have started earlier,
So let's dive into that because you do have a very fascinating story because you, like you said, you played college ball at Alabama.
Yes.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. That's right.
And then you became a husband, a dad, career, all the things. And your story resonated so much with me because I am not an ultra marathoner. Let me just put that out there. But the whole concept that you shared, which was I couldn't even run from my front door to my mailbox.
Yep.
That was so much of my story.
Okay.
And so I sat there and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And I had a friend that was like, hey, come train with me. And I was doing century bike rides, but riding a bike, just like you said, playing football, completely different than running.
Completely different, yeah.
And so you could be out in 110 degrees, 100% humidity, smacking guys around all day long for hours.
Right.
But running is completely different.
It's, completely different. Yes. Yes, it is.
So how did you get there? Because that story is fascinating to me. Like, it really is such a good story.
Yeah. So in football, we use running as a means of punishment, So growing up, I've always thought of running as, wow, that's in a negative context almost. Like that's a tool that's used when you get in trouble or a way to discipline or punish people. And so I also naturally associated the word discipline, like a lot of us do, with something that's negative or thinking of it in a negative context. Discipline is also one of the greatest, most positive things that we can have in our life, self-discipline especially. But it took me a while to get to that point and to understand that. But when I got out of college and I came back home, I have a 20-plus year career in medical device sales, and I'm married to an incredible woman. We have 2 great children, 2 daughters that are excellent, and just life was comfortable and things were going good. And like, it's just a normal life, nothing extraordinary, just a normal, comfortable life. And gradually over time, before I realized it, there was an attack that was being waged on me that I was completely unaware of. And it was happening inside my own head. And I was gradually just becoming lazy and lethargic and complacent and living life in a way that it happened so gradually over time that I was just unaware of it. And one day I woke up, May 25th, 2020. That day will live in my head. I'll remember it as if it's my birthday. But I woke up that day and I decided to go do this Memorial Day tribute workout. And I'd seen it online, or I think I saw it on maybe Instagram or Facebook or something. I don't know. But it's called Murph. It's a CrossFit workout where you run 1 mile, then you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and then another 1 mile run on the back end of it. And you're supposed to wear a 20-pound weight vest and run it as fast as possible. Complete the whole thing as fast as you can. And I thought, well, I'll go knock this workout out. Because in my head, I was still a Division I college athlete. I was a 180-pound defensive back at Alabama. And in my head, that's how I identified myself. And so I didn't really think much of this workout. I thought, well, hey, I'm going to go do this real quick, and then I'm going to hang out with my buddies the rest of the day, whatever. cookout, whatever you do on Memorial Day. So I was like, all right, let me go do this workout. So I go to do the first part of it, and that 1 mile run, I left my house and I made it to the CVS at Old Shell and McGregor. It's about 200 yards from my front door. And I was broken. I hadn't run, not even, I wouldn't say 200 yards. It wasn't a quarter of a mile. It wasn't that far at all. And everything hurt. My bones were hurting, my legs, my back. But the biggest thing was I was getting hit in that moment with the realization of just how far I had fallen back from where I used to live life at one level, and just how far down I'd fallen, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in every way. I had just become much less than I was as far as how I was living life, my activities, my daily habits. But I still thought of myself in those good ways, but I was living a completely different way. And it took trying to attempt that workout for that to really become something that I was aware of. So I get to this CVS and I'm just broken. And it took me another 15, 20 minutes just to walk back home. And I'm serious, you're talking about maybe 300 yards max. It's not that far. But I was just hurting really bad and I was in a bad place. And I got home and I walked inside and I went in our bedroom and I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm going to jump on the scale real quick. I knew maybe I was a little out of shape, but I didn't know how bad. And I said, hey, Leslie, come in here. My wife, Leslie, she's a clinical dietitian too. So, you'd think I would have just all kinds of resources at home that could have helped me out. And she's always tried to talk to me, but I'd blow it off. And anyway, I tell her, I get home, I get on the scale, and it says I weigh 284 pounds. And now, remember, in my head, I'm a 180-pound defensive back in college. So I thought of myself very differently than how much I really weighed. And so I said, this can't be right. We got to buy a new scale. I had to find an excuse. It couldn't be my fault,
Sure.
right? I couldn't take any kind of responsibility for this. It had to be something or someone else's fault. So I was just looking for a place to point that finger. And so my wife said, well, I know what I weigh, so let me step on, let's see if it's right. So she gets on it and it says exactly what she said it was going to say. And I said, this can't be. And I get back on the scale a second time just to double check. And sure enough, 284. And I thought, wow, I'm 100+ pounds overweight. I'm morbidly obese. I just couldn't accept that. I couldn't, because I didn't think of myself that way. It's hard to want to admit that you actually have gotten to this point. But then a lot of things that I think I subconsciously ignored, the fact that when I went and bought clothes, I was buying triple XL size shirts. Well, the norm for me was a size large, the majority of my life. But it's crazy how you can just ignore obvious things if you want to, if your brain just isn't ready to accept it. And that's what I was doing. And I just thought I've got two options. I can either stay this person and just be this 280+ pound guy, and I won't be here within a year. I knew something was going to happen. I was going to pay the price and have to pay the man at some point. And I didn't want that, obviously. So my other option was to fix it. But I knew that to fix it was going to take something that was going to be incomprehensible to a lot of people. And it was going to be something that a lot of people didn't agree with and would probably not support me in. But I knew that it had to be really difficult, because what had to change was my brain, my mentality, and my mindset needed to change ultimately to fix myself. So I got started and I came up with this crazy diet, and I came up with this just ridiculous kind of workout routine. It wasn't much at first. It was really just walking because that's all I could do. But I came up with this plan and I said, I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to stick to it until it's either going to work or I'm going to die in the process. And I was okay with either way. I didn't want anything bad to happen, but I was just in a bad spot that I knew I couldn't stay in. So I just got to work, and almost 5 months later, I was down 100 pounds.
Wow.
And as the weight came off, and there's a better way to do it than I did it. I'm not saying what I did was healthy or the right way by any means. In no way would I ever suggest anyone do that. But for me, it had to be, I just know my personality and the way I am, it had to be a true struggle. Like it had to be a lot of suffering every day to become happier, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but when I chose to seek out some pain and suffering, I actually became so much happier, which is bizarre.
Sounds like the great mixture of a ultra marathoner in the making.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, little did I know. I was training myself back then, but I had no idea about running ultra marathons when I was going through that process. And that was just 5 years ago. It hasn't been that long. It's felt long at times.
Pun intended, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because I still have that old me lives in my head. Because my plan, I thought, was, okay, I'm going to kill this version of me and I'm going to bury him and I'm never going to have to deal with that again. But that's not the way that works. It doesn't go down like that. The way that works is you can replace him, but that version of you can still live in your head. And I'm thankful that it does, though, because it gives me something to fight against. It gives me something because when he speaks up, I can't help but hear him, and it's a fight. It's like a daily fight against the way I used to be versus the way I am now. So I'm thankful for the struggle. It's really actually what's needed. Everybody kind of wants the easy route and the quick fix and the shortcut, but the true fix, if you're really wanting to learn about yourself and get yourself turned around in the right direction, it's going to be a long process. It's going to take longer and be harder than you think it should be. And that's actually what you want. At the end of the day, if you think about it, you really want that because that's where the growth is at, for sure.
So then you start walking, you
Yes.
do this fitness routine that you're doing. And for the record, one of the things that just stuck to me was that you said, I'm going to do this no matter what. Hurricanes were coming.
Yeah.
You were still out there. Like you were like,
Yeah.
I am doing this. Torrential downpours, because we're in Mobile. It rains almost every day.
Yep.
And it's not a sprinkle. It's going to be flooding. And you're like,
Yep.
I'm getting out there and I'm walking. Nothing stopped
Yeah.
you.
No, in fact, I would wait for the weather. If I knew a storm was coming in, I might put my run off a little bit later. It's like, all right, it's going to be really bad at 3 o'clock. So instead of running this morning, I'll wait till this afternoon and I'm going to go get it in then.
Really?
Oh, I started to look forward to that. Yeah.
Why?
Because, when, and great question, why? My wife asked me that. Some of my friends do it. I wish I had a great answer as to
Okay.
why, but actually, I think I do have a good answer. At least to me, it makes sense. When you're struggling with self-confidence and insecurities and a lot of the things that a lot of us struggle with, a lot of people, we don't like to admit it. We like to pretend and fake and hide it and put ourselves off as maybe something else, but we all struggle with that at times. And when you face something head on, no matter how small or big it might be, that's where that self-confidence and that internal growth and the self-esteem, that's where that's built and developed. Now, it very quickly, like we said earlier, can go away. If you start getting away from doing hard things or embracing things that might be difficult, then that starts to go away. But if you can intentionally put yourself like into the suck, like into a struggle, that those characteristics get built really quick. And so I will just start to look for it because that's ultimately what I needed. I wanted to feel better about myself. It really wasn't, I wanted to look better because I don't know that there's any opportunity or chance for me to ever look good, but I definitely wanted to feel better. And so I knew that, again, anything as hard as something could be or as more difficult, I would get up, and I still do this. I get up, I run at odd times. I'll make myself wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go. There's no reason for that, but nobody else is doing it, and it's not fun. And there's a much more comfortable time that I could do that, for example. But 2 o'clock in the morning, running out on the golf course with the Coyotes is not a lot of fun, but it's the right choice. If you're wanting to build yourself up mentally and emotionally and spiritually and seeking out struggle, that's what I would do. So there were back-to-back hurricanes. It was in 2020. It was like Sally, and
Oh my gosh,
there was
yeah.
another, I forget the other hurricane, but they were maybe a couple of weeks apart, but they were pretty close. And yeah, I was the one idiot out in Mobile running around in the middle of hurricanes, and I've got on this rain jacket and I'm like running against the wind, and so it just looks like I'm barely walking, but I thought, hey, this is as bad as it gets. And I apply some common sense. If there's a tornado rolling down my street, I'm not going to step out.
The tornado?
Yeah,
Okay.
I figured a tornado would probably win that fight, but yeah, it's good for my head. I know it sounds a little
You
odd,
like a good
strange.
challenge. You're like,
I
I've
love
done
it.
this,
I
so
love it.
now we're going to see what else I can do in bad weather.
The harder, the better. The greater the chance that I'm going to fail at something, the more excited I would be to do it.
Wow.
So really, yeah.
Wow.
That's how I got into ultra running. I think that's what probably drew me to ultra running.
I was going to say, so let's step into that. So you were walking, fitness routine.
Yes. Yeah.
So then how did you go down this path of ultra running? Because that's just not something, especially around here.
Yeah.
Now, we do have a great ultra marathon community,
For sure.
but
Oh
it's
yeah.
small as compared to road racing. It's just not. And also, like around here, there's not an ultra marathon. You have to go to
You have to
North
travel.
Alabama
Yep.
or Georgia, Tennessee, all those Texas
Yep.
sort of thing. So how does somebody who, from where you are or where you were, to how did you find out about ultra marathoning?
So when I started the workout plan, I was just walking, and that walking gradually led to running. I was able to run more as my weight came down, and I started to get in better shape. And I ended up running a half marathon, and I ran a couple of marathons, and I was excited about that. But I kept wondering, like, what else is there? There's got to be something else. And I looked at some obstacle course races, and I was looking into Go Ruck challenges and some different things like that because I have that football background.
Sure.
So I think of like short obstacle, explosive type running, which is very different than endurance or distance running. But I was looking for what's harder, what's the hardest challenge out there. And then I'd heard about ultra running, but I just hadn't really put any thought into it. And then I can't remember if someone, I think I saw something either online. I think I saw something online about a race, the Oak Mountain 50K. It was a website. I forget where I saw it, but I thought, wow, that's a trail race. Trail running was not something that have ever been exposed to because we don't have them here.
Right.
I don't know anyone that grew up doing that. I didn't grow up doing that. And I started to look at that. I'm like, God, all these rocks and roots and hills, and it's like an obstacle course, and it's a longer distance than a marathon. That's interesting. And so I thought, hey, let's go do that. So 11 months after I stood on the scale that day and it told me I weighed 284 pounds, 11 months later, I was standing at the starting line of the Oak Mountain 50K, which is a difficult 50K. If that's going to be your first ultra race, you could pick something easier for sure, because that was, I can't remember how many feet of climbing is in that race, but Oak Mountain is a lot of technical trails, a lot of hilly. Is again not something that I was used to, and I had no idea what I was doing. It was a clown show. I showed up and I didn't know. I felt like such a fraud. You feel like, what am I doing here? You're looking around with a bunch of these skinny dudes with long hair and beard and like your typical ultra runner kind of guy. And I'm looking around, I'm thinking, wow, man, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here. And so I got it done. It was actually a great race. It was a big feeling of accomplishment, and to run 31 miles just seemed crazy to me at the time.
Sure.
And so to do it, I was excited, but it instantly made me ask that next question. Okay, what's next? What's something else? And so that's how I got into ultra running, because then I ran 50 milers, 100Ks, and I always had that 100-mile distance out of the corner of my eye I was looking at, but I was always a little intimidated and afraid of it. And I always thought, man, that's not for me. So really, that's not for me, because that's for elite. That's your Jeff Brownings and Courtney Dowalters of the world. That's what they do. Like I had been obviously looking up more and more about ultra running because I had been hooked by that point. But I kept thinking, like, no, 100-mile, I finally got the courage to try it. And I thought, well, I'll just give it a shot. And I've learned is the wrong way to approach it. But at the beginning, that's what I thought. And I thought, well, all right, I'm gonna give it a shot. So I did. And so now that's how I got into ultra running. And I've run 20 ultra marathons, 6 of which I've run 600-mile races, and I've completed 5 of them, and then a bunch of other distances. So yeah, it has changed my life. I love it.
Incredible.
My friends and family think I'm crazy because they don't understand it, and it makes no sense to them. And it's hard for them to wrap their head around, just like it was for me in the beginning, because it sounds like a crazy thing to do. And it probably is crazy. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not crazy, but it's so much fun. And it's definitely what I need it. I need it. I need to breathe.
Wow.
So.
That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And I will say this, not only in the book reading, but also in your book, you talk about your pit crew, which is your beautiful bride.
Yes.
And how supportive that she's been.
Yep.
And just the small interaction of watching you guys at Redbeards, I was like, wow, what a team.
Yeah.
So
she's incredible.
What does that mean to have such a support system? Because in running, we know that as runners, we can't do it ourselves.
Right.
It is our crew. It is our people, whether it's for the 5K, the marathon, or an ultra.
100%.
Just having that support system there.
Yeah, there's no way that I would complete any of these races without my wife, Leslie. So she's with me at every race. She's never missed. And it's just me and her. We don't have a team. It's just her and I are the team. But yes, she's incredible. She knows what to say to me, when to say it, when not to say it. She knows what I need before I know what I need.
Yeah.
She really is. She's a rock star in every sense of the word. And when I first met her, she's small too. She's 5'2", and I don't know, she weighs about 90 pounds. She's just a tiny little blonde-headed lady who is just, her heart is gigantic. Mm-hmm. And when I first met her, it's funny, I describe her like that only because when I first met her, she was riding a motorcycle and jumping out of airplanes for a living. So she was a professional skydiver, and she has almost 1,000 jumps, and she was just crazy. I said, I want to talk to that girl right there. When I heard about that, I thought, who's her? I want to meet her right now. So yeah, she's incredible. She knows how to apply tough love to me when I need it during a race.
Okay.
She knows when not to, when to. So she knows me really well, and that's what makes it work. So she's not a runner, so she doesn't bring a background or knowledge of running or sports medicine or like any of the things. She's learning along with me.
Sure.
And that's really what makes it a lot of fun. I say it's fun though. I think there are times when she does get tired of sleeping in the back of my truck for 2 days while I'm running a race, and she's out in the middle of nowhere by herself, and she's like, this is great. This is how I spend my weekends. But she's just been incredible. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I could not ask for a better crew chief than her. And she doesn't run with me, but she'll, if there's things I need, she'll pack a bag and hike it to the next checkpoint to meet me, to try to cut me off somewhere. We'll map out a race and plan it as far as where we think we need to be and what we might need. And so all those logistics are something that is just kind of part of the ultra world anyway. So, but she's good with nutrition, hydration. She keeps me on track with all that.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah, she's
Oh,
awesome.
that's
She's awesome.
phenomenal.
Yep.
So you've already hit on one lesson that you've learned, which is discipline.
Yes.
So what are some lessons that you've learned from running?
So I've learned a lot from running, but the biggest thing I've learned is that we can do a lot more than we think we can. We can run further than we think we can, if that's what you choose to do. But that really applies to anything, you know. It's like life. You really can do more. We put a lot of limits on ourselves because there's no reason at all. There's no logical, rational reason why I should be an ultra marathon runner. It makes no sense. And if anyone that knows me in my life will tell you the same thing, that makes no sense. There's no way Greg could do that, but it's become something that it is what I do, and I love it. And the biggest thing is just that we can do a lot more than we think we can. And it's taught me patience. It's taught me how to be present in the moment and not look at a big task that's in front of me and the whole picture, and learn how to break that task into small, manageable pieces, because that's what you have to do with an ultra.
Sure.
Just like in life, you go through, you have a sick child, or one of our daughters has a seizure disorder that she's recently been diagnosed with in the last year, and she's going through a long process now, and it's tough. And as a parent, it's really tough because to watch that is difficult. And so she doesn't realize she's learning it, but she's learning now, hey, this is a big thing in front of me. I have to figure out how to overcome, but just taking it one day at a time and chipping away at it. And that's the way you approach an ultra race. And it taught me that as well, that if you go, wow, I'm at mile 50 and my body's broken and I can't stand up out of this chair and I don't know how I'm going to take another step, but I have 50 miles left to go. What choice are you going to make in that moment? What are you going to do? And it really reveals to you who you are. And if you pay attention to it, ultra running will teach you about yourself like nothing else can, for sure. But in my opinion, it has to be ultra running. And I only say that because there's so much you can learn. Just go run a mile every day. You can learn a lot about yourself,
absolutely.
right? Yeah. But I think it's the time on your feet. That 100 miles is a long way to run, and it takes a long time to get that done, which means there's a lot of time for problems that come up that you got to figure out, obstacles you got to maneuver around or overcome. And as time goes on and sleep deprivation, a lot of other things start to become a factor. Your brain just goes to different levels of different places. And I think it's the time out there that's required to run an ultra is what I get out of it is a little bit different than anything else. And so it only takes about 10 minutes for me to completely to physically destroy myself, but to learn something mentally and to grow internally is something that I get from ultra running like I don't from anything else. So I feel like I gained 10 years of life in 24 hours.
Wow.
Like they say, it's like life in a day. You can experience life in one day by running an ultra. I think there's a lot of truth to that. So, yeah. Yeah.
So what has been your favorite race?
So my favorite race, it's a good question. I've run some great ones. My favorite one has been the Blood Rock 100. And it's my favorite because it's the hardest. For me, it's been the hardest one that I've run. So it's not the hardest race out there. There's some incredible ultra races out there that are really difficult. But Blood Rock is really difficult. It's over 30,000 feet of climbing. It's at Oak Mountain State Park, just south of Birmingham. And you wouldn't think, like, how do you get 30,000 feet? This is Alabama. We don't have mountains here. Mount Everest is 29,029 feet. You tell me this is more, and total elevation, because it's a lot of up, down kind of stuff. Very technical, almost unrunnable terrain. It's tough. It's a really tough race. And I attempted it once. I DNF'd the first time I attempted the Blood Rock 100, but I ran their 50K. I ran their 50-mile race. And then I went back this past December to get my revenge, and I got it. It was payback. So I got it done, and Leslie kind of was kicking and pulling me across the finish line. So without her, it wouldn't have happened for sure. But yeah, I went back and got it done. And again, the most difficult race that I've done, and so hands down my favorite.
That's wild, Greg. Wild. Is there a race? I hate to even ask this because I feel like you're going to be like, no, I'm just going to go back and redo it, which is what you just said.
Yep.
But is there a race that maybe things just didn't go right, or you're like, man, that was just a horrible race and I don't ever care to do that one again?
Yep. And I'm afraid to say it.
Okay.
Because it's a great race.
Okay.
It is an awesome race, but it's the Mobile Marathon. So this is before I lost weight, before I started getting myself back in the right place.
Okay.
About 3 years prior to that, 2017, I remember, I don't know when I had this brief moment of just thinking, I need some perspective. I guess maybe part of my brain woke up and said, hey man, you're headed down the wrong road. We got to fix something here. And then I quickly dismissed it. But for a brief second, while I had that clarity of thought, I remembered, I told Leslie, I said, hey, I'm going to run the Mobile Marathon tomorrow. It was the next day. And I was probably, I don't know how much I weighed back then. I was probably 250, 260. I was a big boy. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go. She goes, you don't run? Like I hadn't run in probably 20 years, whatever. I didn't do anything. I drank beer and watched football and ate pizza and whatever. I didn't do much of anything. I said, no, I need some perspective. And I thought, well, if I go run a marathon, it's going to be so miserable and brutal. It'll make running 2 to 3 miles each day, which is what I need to start doing, or maybe something. That'll seem easy. So that perspective which kind of makes sense.
You were trying to kickstart it.
I was trying to kickstart something.
Okay.
So that's how I work. I don't know why, but I thought, yeah, let's go run a marathon with no training, no nothing. So we showed up the next day, and yeah, I went down there that morning and ran the mobile marathon. I barely got it done. I barely made the cutoff. It was like 7 hours, I think.
Wait, you ran the 26.2 miles?
Yeah.
Like
well,
you did the marathon.
Ran, walked, cried, broke down, like whatever, but it was ugly. It was ugly, really ugly. But yeah, so I ran the whole thing. And I remember coming up what they call it Fireman's Hill over there about Municipal. And I was like, wow, God, this is like a mountain. It just seemed at that point, because that's about mile 17 or so, I think, on that course. And yeah, I was hurting bad. It was rough. And I was like, what am I doing? Maybe a car will just hit me and that'll be my way out. I was looking for anything like, this is brutal, but it was the most miserable. And it wasn't because of the race. It was because of me and the way I approached it. But it was rough. It was really rough. And I got that perspective, but then that perspective really goes away fast. It's not about an event. It's a process, not an event. And I didn't really understand that. And that ended up being one of the titles of my book, because like anything, everything's a process.
Sure. So you did not go running the next few weeks?
The next few, yeah. It was
2 or 3 miles?
It might have been 6 months. I was really, no, man, I don't think I couldn't walk for 2 days. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was so bad. And we have some videos and pictures of it that my wife took back then. And it's just a sad sight to see me out there. But I was proud that I did it. But I also it was so miserable. It was the worst. That's the only reason I say it was the worst race. The race itself is awesome. It's great. But for me that day, I'll never forget it. That was the dumbest thing I could have ever
while you're
done.
driving, you're like, I think I'll run a marathon tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the fact that you did it, like, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's something wrong with me. I'm not quite sure what it is.
That is fascinating, because I was a one and done marathon, and I trained and drank for months for that. And I was like, I don't ever care to do this again.
Yeah. The marathons are rough. Marathons.
But the fact that you're like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Do you remember what
Knock
shoes
yourself.
you did it in?
Yeah, I went to McCoy's and Joe Sims put me in a
So
pair.
you did get fitted for shoes.
I went that day. I said, I got to go. I don't even think I didn't have running shoes. I had some shoes I would use to like work in the yard or something like that. That was it. I really didn't have anything. So I went, Joe, I forget what type of shoes he put me in, but that's my go-to guy. That's my guy for shoes. So he's been great. And, but I can't remember what they were. It was something with a lot of cushion, because I'm sure he looked at me and thought, okay, if I'm going to help this guy basically kill himself, what's he doing? This is stupid.
Fascinating.
He probably was thinking, he's so big and stupid. Let me just put him, what's the most max cushion thing I've got to help hold him up? So, but yeah, so it was crazy.
That is wild, Greg.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yep. So
that's amazing. Like, I am like in awe. Like, I'm just like, that is incredible to be able to do that.
I don't know if it's incredible or if it's just stupid.
No,
but maybe a little bit of both. I don't know. But
that's amazing.
Yeah. It
wow.
was wild.
Okay.
It was wild.
Let's shift to routine.
Yep.
You have a pre-race routine, whether it's ultra marathon, marathons, 5Ks, anything like that. Do you have a pre-race that you?
I don't really have a pre-race routine, other than I have this little mobility routine that I go through.
Oh, cool.
It takes about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some specific areas that kind of get tight and that are issues for me. And so a little 5-minute routine, go through that. Other than that, I like to be by myself and be really quiet. And I'm not excited. I'm usually not fired up before a race. I don't listen to music when I run or anything like that. I just get quiet, because it's almost a depressing feeling, because I know what's coming. Like, I know the struggle ahead, because I've been there now. And it's like, man, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. This is not. But at the same time, it's the only place I want to be. I have this love-hate relationship with running, if you can't tell. And I'm still trying to figure that out now. But yeah, I'll just need to be by myself. And I can get myself into a place in my head that's good for me. And then that gets me through the race. And I can live in that space in my brain, in my head. And without being in that spot, though, it's so much more difficult. So mentally, I get myself to the place where I need to be. And outside of that little 5-minute mobility routine.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's it.
You cross the finish line and you're done. Do you then celebrate a little bit, or are you like?
Well, I've always got the next race on the schedule.
Okay.
So I've always got something that I'm working towards. It helps me stay on track, because like I said earlier, it's a daily fight in my head with that old version of me that I've got to keep at bay. So I always have the next race, but I do celebrate. I always take time. I love to look back and think about the race that I just did. But I have these post-race debriefs that I do. I record them on my phone. And I always make sure I'm alone when I do this because it's not pleasant to listen to. I'm really hard on myself. I talk to myself in what would sound like a very kind of vulgar, disgusting way. But for me, it's good. But it's honest. And it's me, I telling myself the truth. And it helps me, though, not only learn from, I go through the whole race, my training leading up to a race, the race itself, the choices I made, the effort I feel like I put in, my nutrition, my hydration, everything. I try to look at every aspect of a race, record it so that I can remember it. But it also helps me prepare for the upcoming race, for anything down the road. So it's just a constant, and that's how that hamster wheel rolls. I try to learn from the past, take it into the next race that's coming up. And if I can just get a little better each day, that's a goal. I don't compare myself to anybody else because most people are much better runners than I am. I'm not a talented runner. God didn't bless me with any kind of skills or natural talent for this. But if I can just be a little better each time, then that's what it's about. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I like the post-race debrief. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it helps me because it's easy to forget. It's just hard. It's hard to remember everything about a race. I have to go back and look at pictures or any videos and then my post-race, like all these things just to remember most races, like a lot of it. So, and then Leslie's always there with her version of it, which is usually very different than mine. She's like, can we go now? Let's get out of here. So
I get it because sometimes you're in that moment and you're trying to just make it to the next stop or the next mile. And so sometimes it's a little bit of a blur and it hasn't even hit you that you're done until you cross the finish line.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, what did I just do?
Yeah.
What was that like? So I love the idea of a post-race brief, of looking back and saying, okay, this is what it was like.
Yeah. Yeah. It allows you to really think back and go, okay, I did these things well. I could maybe improve in these areas or whatever. And it can help you. It's like in football, it's like watching film or watching a game. You go, okay, hey man, we won the game or we lost the game is irrelevant. It's like, how did we play? And you look at each play and it's a tedious, long process, but it's the same thing here. It's just break your race down and do it within a day or two because your mind is still the things that you learn from an ultra race and the clarity of thought that you get. It's almost like a Buddhist monk enlightenment. It feels, it's almost just like every question you ever had gets answered kind of thing. So you think a little differently and psychologically your mind is in a little bit of a different place than it typically is with just normal everyday life when you got all this stuff going on around you, people pulling at you and everything. We think a little differently as opposed to really suffering through something, overcoming it, not quitting and throwing in the towel and getting it done. You spend a brief period of time after a race in a place in your head that's pretty special. And if you can record that, and I try to capture that with these post-race debriefs, at least the way I'm thinking.
Sure.
Because I can go back later and listen to it and I'm like, what was I talking about? Like, that doesn't make sense. Who would say that? That's weird. I'm a weird guy. But yeah, it's different, but it helps. It's extremely helpful.
I do have to ask this question.
Yes.
And you may be thinking, like, I know where she's going with this. In your debriefs, have you heard the delusions that you've had? Were you like, yep, there was the kangaroo? Is that in the debrief?
They are. Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
yeah, I record everything. I record everything that I can possibly remember. But yeah, I've had so many moments. I don't know if they're blackout moments or if I've just lost my damn mind. But I've had moments where I don't even remember running. I can't feel my feet touching the ground. I don't notice myself breathing. I'm not thinking. I'm not asleep, but it's almost as if I am asleep. And then I wake up out of it, almost like something like startles me awake. And I look at my watch and think, I've been running for 4 miles and I don't remember any of it. It's like a blackout moment.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's some, like the runner's high, whatever they talk about. I don't know if that's what that is, but that usually comes really later in a race because that's exhaustion and sleep deprivation and a lack of calories and a lot of things I think factor into that. But around that time, when that starts to happen, for me at least, is the few times that I've hallucinated is when that's happened. And I've seen children trick-or-treating in the woods, which made perfect sense to me at the time. Like when kids are knocking on trees asking for candy, that should be a red flag that this isn't real. No. For me, it was like, hey, I started talking to them. And I was like, hey guys, I remember asking what kind of candy they had. And because I wanted some candy. I remember I'm going to jack some candy off one of these kids. that was my plan. And I remember I was talking to and they wouldn't talk to me. There was no response, anything.
They were not giving you their candy.
Nah. And I just like, all right, man, whatever. Just kept running. And then it was in that same race, and I think I write about this in the book, is a kangaroo with deer antlers and wearing a yellow sweater was all of a sudden was on the trail. And I was passing them, and I remember the kangaroo, it was saying, "Good job, Greg, you got this." And so I said, "Thanks." And I kept running. And I promise you, I said it out loud, and it was like, wow. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? This is crazy. This doesn't make any sense. There's a part of your brain that's like, this is stupid. But then I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I saw a kangaroo. He's talked to me. I spoke back to him. This happened, right? So it's like, wow.
He was in a yellow sweater.
Yes, yellow sweater. I'm not a fan of yellow sweaters, but he apparently is. So, hey, good for him or whatever. But yeah, it's really strange. And I think maybe that's God's way of saying, hey, this dude really needs some help right now. So I'm just going to put him in a little bit of a different place for a minute. I'm going to let him see some weird stuff and get him through this. I don't know. Maybe that's not God, but it's definitely interesting. It really is. Ultra running can bring in it is a unique experience for sure. And I don't always hallucinate, and I don't think anyone always does that. I don't really know what it takes to get to that point. I think it probably differs for different people.
Sure.
And a lot of things that you think you see are just rocks or trees or bushes. And I thought I saw a mountain lion on a 2.5 mile loop trail that a race in Pensacola, a 50-mile race called the Wildcat 100. And I ran the 50-mile version that year. And I thought that there was a mountain lion. Why would there be a mountain lion in the middle of Pensacola, Florida? That doesn't make sense. But in my head, I got to this place, and in a 50-miler, you shouldn't get there. That's really early. I think I didn't sleep the night before kind of thing. And so my sleep deprivation was still maybe up there like it would be with a 100-miler. But yeah, so you see things, and it just turned out to be a bush with 2 sticks that were laying the right way or something weird, and it just looked like a mountain lion.
Sure.
So, whatever. Thought I was about to PR that race because it scared me to death. If I set a new record here, I got to run from mountain lion. So, but yeah, it's interesting though. Ultra running is crazy. It's a wild community. It's so great though when you see a group of people that they all come together to electively go through a lot of pain and suffering in order to get what they want out of it. And while they're suffering, everyone's helping everyone else out. It's awesome. And that's the other thing you asked me earlier, what I've learned from ultra running. Another thing that I would say to that real quick is that when you're hurting and you're going through anything tough or difficult, go help somebody else out. You'll be shocked how much that actually helps you. Because all of a sudden you're thinking about them. You're not thinking about your own pain or your own issues or struggles you're going through. You're helping someone else, and in turn, it helps you just as much, if not more. So that's another lesson that's taught me. So, yeah,
that's amazing.
It's been great. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite running item? You will not go running without this item.
I'm a minimalist runner. I don't have a lot of things. I do have a favorite hat.
Okay.
I made the hat myself. It's this trucker hat, but I've got this patch that I got at the Floribama. Yeah, down in Orange Beach. And I sewed this Floribama patch on the front of this hat. And the Oak Mountain 50K, I wore that hat for the first time. And so it's become my lucky hat. It's seen a lot of pain. And so it's right there with me. Outside of that, I don't really have a favorite. I don't run with music. And that became one of my rules when I went through the weight loss process I went through initially. I ended up coming up with these rules that I now live by. But one of the rules that I came up with was no music when running. And so I really don't have a lot of gear and stuff. I do have my favorite trail shoes, the Nike Zoom X. Those are awesome. And then I alternate those with the Ultra Olympus 6 shoes. And those are great too. So I just got turned on to Ultra about a year or so ago, but they've got awesome stuff too. So
Okay.
yeah.
So you've talked a little bit about fueling and how you're married to a dietitian.
Yep.
So for ultra marathons, what does your fuel look like?
So I try to eat as much real food as possible. I try to stay away from gels and goos and stuff. I know a lot of people naturally think, well, that's what you eat when you run. But for me, those kind of upset my stomach a little bit. I'll keep 1 or 2 on me. If I start to bonk or I start to get in a really low spot, which you're going to get to in ultras. I mean, it's all about riding the highs and lows, and you get some really low points, and then you have these crazy high moments. And when I'm in a low spot, I'll take a gel because it does help me, just that quick hit of sugar. But too many of them upset my stomach. So I eat a lot of potatoes. I eat noodles. I can stomach pizza, but I can't stomach fruit. It's crazy. Like I ate watermelon one time during a race, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. You start having some GI issues when you're running. That's not a good spot to be in. So, but the night before a race, there's this chicken and rice dish that my wife makes. I usually always eat that. But during a race, it's noodles, ramen noodles, mashed potatoes, and I'll eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And then I've got this electrolyte drink that I keep with my hydration. And I've got a carbohydrate drink too that I'll take early on, but I start to keep, it's hard to maintain drinking that when you just drink your calories.
Yeah.
It's all you need is water, salt, and sugar in whatever form works for you. And I try to get those 3 main things, but real food is the best way for me to keep from having stomach issues.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the big focus for me, because nothing's worse than having your stomach starts flip-flopping on you and you start.
And you're out in the woods.
And you're out in the woods, yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've got 60 miles left in this. What am I going to do? And but yeah, and that's part of it. Yeah, everybody goes through that. You enough ultra races, you'll go through everything. Even when you have a great race, like everything goes perfect, and you have one of those rare days. Even on those days, there are still problems you have to solve. There's still obstacles that got to be overcome, and that's really all ultra running is. Can you hang in there long enough and figure out these problems? And I heard a guy say one time, one rule is don't die in the chair. Don't, because it's easy. You sit down in that chair to take a break for a second at an aid station, or change your shoes, or grab something to eat, refill water bottles. And sometimes it gets really hard to want to stand up out of that chair. And so, yeah, don't die in the chair is something my wife and I have adopted, and we've taken on that saying. And there's times to make that choice, but usually people make that choice a lot sooner than they should. So, yeah.
Do you have a favorite running memory?
The first time I ran 1 mile. Yeah, it was tried to lose weight. I got to where my weight came down, and that day I ran 1 mile without stopping. It was a huge day. And that sounds like a silly thing to say. I could sit here and go, yeah, first 100-mile race I ran, or this or that. The first time I ran 1 mile, I was like, man, I can't believe I just did this. And I still think that to this day. When I run, I think I still at times have that thought, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like maybe whatever's on the schedule, maybe it's a 10-mile run today. And there'll be some point in that 10-mile run, and I'll think, because I just remember it so vividly. It wasn't long ago where I couldn't walk, block down my street. And so it's pretty cool. But that first time I ran 1 mile was an awesome day for me. And then
Love that.
Yeah, it was wild. So it was wild.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's shift to recovery. So you get done with your race. What does recovery look like for you?
So recovery for me looks like a lot of eating and a lot of sleep time in the bed. Food and sleep, there's no substitute for food and sleep. Calories, it's amazing how much just calories and a little water will fix a lot of problems. And sleep is the best recovery tool there is, I think. I have these compression boots that go on my legs. That helps me. I don't know if it just feels good or if it helps, but I think it helps. But I use that. It's called Reathlete is the type I've got. But those compression leg, they almost look like pants, like you put on.
Oh, they're
just
so
Velcro.
good.
Oh, they're awesome. Yeah. And so I use those, and then really just ice, compression, and elevation. And I would say rest is the other part of that acronym, because that RICE method is usually the most recommended method by doctors and other people. But the rest, you need rest, and that's fine. But one of the biggest things you can do for recovery is to start moving again.
Yeah.
Get up the next day. You're not going to want to. You're going to be stiff and barely going to be able to walk. But if you can make yourself just start moving around, just go outside, go walk around your yard. I mean, that's all it takes. But just start moving and get blood flowing again is usually the best thing for recovery. And if you have a specific injury, and maybe you have a joint injury, or you roll an ankle, or you pull a muscle, there might be specific things you need to focus on. And you might even need to go to see someone for that. But just normal recovery is to start moving. Get some food in you, get some rest, but then get up and start moving is the best thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do any cross training?
I do a lot of cross training. So I do a lot of rucking.
Okay.
And that's really helped me when I'm preparing for the mountain type race. Yeah, living in Mobile is just so flat. We don't have hills. We don't have technical trails. And it makes it tough to train for a mountain race. But I've got a big backpack, and I've got different sandbags I can throw in there so I can adjust the weight. I can make it up to, I think about 85 pounds is the heaviest I can make it. And then I can just take it all out and make it a 10 pound, whatever. But I'll make it as heavy as I can, and I'll throw it on and just start. It's not a walk, but it's not a jog or run. It's kind of like a shuffle.
Yeah.
Kind of shuffling. But I can do that for a long period of time. And so I'll substitute runs for rucks, and I do a lot of strength training. I work out in my garage. I've got a pull-up bar, a sledgehammer, and 2 dumbbells, and a Yeti cooler. And with those 4 items, I can get it done. And I do strength training about 4 days a week.
Okay.
And that's been really important too, especially for an old man like me. It's like that's really helped me with injury prevention and overcoming current injuries and things like that. So it's made running a lot easier. It's crazy, especially ultra running, because you just get into a lot of muscle failure and fatigue. You got to have that strength. And a lot of people don't do that. They just run, and that's all they do. And while, you've got to log the miles and you've got to get time on your feet, and all that's important, but strength training is key. I would say as key as even running. So I do it. Yeah, I do a lot of that.
Especially with ankle.
Oh, yeah.
And with road racing, you're one direction. Sure, you might be turning occasionally, but in trail running, there's lateral movements, there's jumping over things, there's so just with the little bit of trail running that I've done, that you're just like, whoa, I can see where ankle strength is more than needed?
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. I've rolled my ankles at times that would have been a lot worse injuries if I hadn't have prepared for it. And you can tell it. You can really feel it when your body's ready for something. Your joints are ready, and little things that would become big injuries, just you can brush off and keep going, and they don't become an issue.
Wow.
So it's really, it'll save you for sure. But yeah, I focus a lot on ankles, my knees, hips, back, and I just do basic stuff. It's just nothing fancy. I do push-ups and pull-ups, and then I do a bunch of squats and lunges and burpees and box jumps and plyometric stuff. Nothing that no one knows about. It's just basic stuff. I just do a lot of it. And
you box jump on the Yeti?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is,
I was trying to figure out, like, where does the Yeti come into play?
It's like cheating because it's really not that tall. Like, it needs to be taller, but it makes his box jumps a little bit easier, but it's all I've got. And I'm not going to spend the money to go buy a big box. So the Yeti is what it is. That's what it's going to be. And then it becomes our go-to on races. That's the one we pack up. And so anytime I stop and need to get something, I can also look at it and go, God, I just suffer on this thing back home. And now it's providing me nutrition, hydration. So it's not like great. It's like a mean father, but just he's there for you, but he's also tough. So, yeah.
Hey, you should find a name for the Yeti.
I do. I need to. You're right.
Yeah.
I will. I'm going to let you know when I come
That's right.
We'll collaborate on that.
Absolutely.
We can go on that together for sure. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to anybody that wants to start running? That where you started 5 years ago, what is something you wish you could tell yourself back then?
Just start. Don't overthink it. A lot of people think, well, I got to come up with the right kind of training plan, and what kind of a race do I want to get ready for? What kind of shoes do I need? Maybe these new shorts, is this what I need? All this gear, what kind of watch should I buy? Man, you got 2 legs, they work. Start running. I don't care if you're barefooted, naked, go outside, just start running. And that's the big thing. Just start and figure the rest out along the way, because you'll figure it out. There's no way to know, but exactly what you need or what you're going to want, because things are going to change as you get into running. But just start. It'll be the greatest choice you've ever made. And I wish I would have, and I ended up eventually, that's what I did. I just started. I had no idea what I was doing.
Sure.
I just said, hey, I can't bend down and tie my shoes without being out of breath, but I can definitely go walk around my neighborhood. And so I just started walking, and I just figured it out along the way. Vision question. And so, that would be the biggest advice. Just start, and don't compare yourself to what other people are doing today. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. That's the big thing. People, it's hard to do that. It's hard not to compare yourself to other people. But a lot of people think, well, God, it's embarrassing. Or these people, I look like a clown out here running around. I used to do that. I used to avoid certain spots, and I would try to run back in places where I knew nobody would see me.
Really?
Oh yeah. I avoided everything. I didn't want to. I was like, God, people are going to laugh at me. So get all that stuff's got to get out of your head.
Sure.
Just start, and you will figure it out really quickly. As far as what you want and what you need. Other than that, just start moving. See how far you can go, and then remember it. And the next day, see if you can go 10% further. If you ran 2 miles, try to run 2.2. Whatever it might be. If you didn't run, if you just walked a mile, then try to walk just over a mile the next time. Just try to be a little better and just get started. So, that would be the biggest thing. Yeah.
I say it all the time that the voices in our head are our own worst enemies. No one has to bully us.
That's right.
We bully ourselves.
That's right. That's exactly right. There's something, my football coach in college, Mike Dubose, he used to tell us this all the time. And he told us a lot of things, but one of the things that really stood out, that I remember that stood out to me, and I think about this a lot, is he used to always tell us, don't give up what you want most for what you want at the moment. Learn to delay instant gratification. Have some self-discipline to do the right thing when you don't want to do the right thing.
Sure.
Understand that it is actually about that self-discipline. It's not about motivation, because motivation is going to come and go based on your mood and how you feel. And is the weather good? Is work good? Things are good at home? Well, then you're motivated. But when things are falling apart around you, that motivation goes away. It's not there for you. Sure. You got to have something more. That's one of the reasons I don't listen to music when running. I think about it in terms of football. People, like these kids, love to listen to their music pregame. And I get all the pregame hype stuff. When the game starts and that ball snap, somebody hits you in your mouth, your headphones are in the locker room. What are you going to do? You got to have something else in you. How are you going to respond to that? And the same thing with running. You're going to get to a point where it hurts really bad. And what choice are you going to make? Or you can go one way or another, and you got to have something else there besides motivation, because that's going to be gone. So it's a difficult thing to try to apply. But I think if people can understand that, just don't give up. What you might want most is, I want to be able to run. I want to run a 100-miler one day, or I want to run a marathon, or I want to run a half marathon, but I can't run 1 mile. Well, learn to give up the things that are maybe holding you back from that. If that's what you want, don't give up that goal of wanting to run that race just because right now you want to eat that, or you want to lay on the couch and not go for that run.
Sure.
So it's one thing to say it. It's definitely another thing to do it. I get it. It's hard. Yeah. But if you can make yourself do it, then that's how you get to where you start waiting for the weather to get bad before you go out to run. Things start to change in a weird way. I'm telling you, and it's awesome.
I don't know that I have ever gotten to the point where hurricane's coming. This is a great time to go for a run, guys.
That's what it's about. It's awesome. It's awesome.
So you've already talked a lot about how you have these conversations in your head, but do you have a saying? Is there something that you tell yourself when you really do want to quit?
I don't really have a mantra or anything that I lean on, only because I don't know that I would really believe it. Like, because there's different times when I need different things.
Sure.
So a lot of times I'll just make up things in my head that aren't real, that I'm like, yeah, I bet that guy, he probably said this about me. And I'll use it as that. Yeah, I know he did. In fact, it only makes sense that he did. And then I'm just like, and that poor guy's probably, yeah, Greg and our buddies. And I'm sitting over there going, I want to burn his house down. I'm coming up with things that aren't even real. And sometimes I'll use that. That can be a motivation that can last for a short period of time. But the big thing is, it's easy for me to look back and I can look at the work I've put in and the things that I've done and everything that I've gone through. And it instantly gives me that perspective. Hey, this isn't that bad. And I can stay positive and I can stay. And that's the big thing really, is just staying positive during a race. So instead of really having a mantra, I can instantly think in my head, hey, I can be patient with the process I'm going through, and I can be very intentional about the way I speak, which is a big part about running ultras. You've got to be patient going through the process, patient with your training, because the growth you get is in the last 10 miles. So you have to go through 90 miles of a lot of pain and suffering and problem solving to get to that growth. You have to be patient doing that. You have to be present and break that race down into small chunks that are manageable. Don't think about the finish line. Think about getting to the next aid station, and then being intentional with the words you speak, because the words you speak matter. And when you give your pain a voice and you're complaining and griping about how bad you might feel, which is what we all love to do that. But if you can not give that pain a voice and really learn to control your mouth and watch the words that you speak out loud, it sounds silly and hokey saying that, but when you're in that moment of really not having a good day and you're really hurting, that will absolutely change your race. That's be the difference between quitting and finishing a 100-mile race, for example. So remembering those three things is what I use more so than a mantra.
Okay.
Sometimes I do have one, but usually it's something I've made up about somebody else, and which is whatever. It's unfair to them, but it works for me when it needs to.
He's like, I do what I can to survive.
Yeah. Hey, look, hey man, I know we're buddies, but listen, you unknowingly did this to me, which you really didn't, but in my head you did. So for the next 24 hours, we're enemies. Yeah.
You're like, listen, we're just going to wrap that up with the kangaroo too. Like, you're on the same level as the kangaroo.
That's exactly right.
That is amazing.
Right. Yep.
Okay. All right. So what's next for you? What does that look like goal-wise?
So I want to see how good I can get it with the 100-mile distance. Okay. That's my favorite distance. I like the difficulty of it. It's a long way to run, and there's just different issues and things you come across in a 100-mile race than you do in shorter distances. Not to take anything away from those, but I just want to see how good I can get at the 100-mile distance. But how much further from 100 can I go? I don't know. I haven't done that yet, so I can't speak to anything further, but I'm looking at the Southern States 200 is a kind of a newer race that it's in North Alabama. The same guy who puts on the Blood Rock Series puts on the Southern States 200. So I'm looking at that 200 miler. We'll see. I've got to go through the approval process with my wife and see if that's something that, can you go from 2 days sleeping in the back of the truck to 4 days maybe? So we'll see how that goes.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but that'll be fun and interesting to take that on, figuring out how to train for that.
Sure.
I don't know how much different it is than training for a 100 miler. It might be very different. I have no idea, but I'll find out. And so that's the next big goal.
I feel like I already know the answer to this question, which is, what's your favorite length to run? Whether it's your training run, obviously an ultra marathon is your 100-mile, that's your favorite distance to run, race day, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite training distance that you like?
I don't really have a favorite. I have my bread and butter, my most normal distance run, and it can vary, but usually a 10-mile run is my basic run. I can get that done in about an hour and a half. It doesn't take that long, and you can get some good mileage in, and I can work on some things. So that would be probably the majority of my runs. And then my long runs for a training run, I really don't go more than 30 miles. Usually a 30-miler would be my longest training run. It just logistically, it's hard to plan that by yourself. You got to use your front door as an aid station kind of thing. And leave yourself snacks along the way. And then what is it going to, you're going to do a 5-mile loop and do that 6 times? You're going to go 15 out and back. So to try to, and it becomes a little monotonous. That's part of ultra. There's some monotony involved sometimes. And so, but sometimes I'll try to run a shorter race, like a 50K or a 50 miler, and use that as a training run for a big race coming up.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's hard to do anything longer. For me, it is. For me, it's harder to, I really don't go more than 30. And sometimes I'll split it up. Maybe it's, okay, I'm gonna do a 15-mile ruck and then do a 15-mile run afterwards.
Okay.
And I'll mix it up. And sometimes I try to, I don't know, get creative. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if what I'm doing is like, if a coach looked at me, like a running coach, they would probably go, this guy's an idiot. What's he doing? It makes no sense. That's not the right way. So it's probably not. I don't have a coach. I've never run with anyone. I'm figuring out as I go.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. So it's fun. It's just Mobile is not, I just wish we had more trails. We just don't have the trails. We don't have, it'd be nice to be able to have a little bit more of that as options. But I do a lot of hill repeats. I'll put that rucksack on, and there's a little hill over by St. Paul's other football field. It's only about 30 yards long, 30 or 40, but it's fairly steep for that little short. And I'll just spend 3 hours just up, down, up, down, up, down.
Wow.
And it's monotonous. It's boring. But that's how I got ready for Blood Rock. That and the stairwell at Spring Hill Hospital. I go hike it all day on Saturday for half the day and just up, down, up, down. I know everybody there because I work there a lot, and so they know who I am, and they don't give me too hard of a time. It's like, hey, there's a crazy guy on the stairwell with a backpack. This day and time, that can sound sketchy, but they leave me alone and let me get it done. So
they're like, it's Greg. He's training. It's fine.
Yeah. So you got to get creative sometimes.
That's wild.
Come up with what you can. So my buddy Lance Johnson, you had Lance on.
I love it.
He and I were just talking the other day. I saw him a few days ago, and we were talking about doing tire drags. And he's like, hey, got this tire, man. I hook it up and just dragging a tire for hours.
Wow.
Lance and I would think along the same lines and have the same, I think, somewhat of a similar outlook on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. Maybe not quite as crazy as him, but yeah.
I think you guys are pretty much up there. You're giving him a run for his money. That's for sure. So I'm really excited to talk about your book, Into the Storm. So let's talk about the title.
Yep.
How did that come to be? And then let's talk about the book.
Yeah. Into the Storm. So yeah, I came up with that title. I ended up coming with that because it's more of a metaphor for life.
Sure.
Life's full of storms. That's just life. Sometimes it's going to be tough. It's going to be unfair. It's going to hurt. There's going to be good times. There's going to be bad times. And that's just life for all of us. And you can either run from that storm or you can head on into it and face it head on. And
figuratively.
Or
literally.
whatever. So it's how the title came to be. But the book, when it started, I really wasn't trying to write a book. It was a letter I was writing to my daughters. And that letter just got really long. And I still had more I wanted to say. But like a lot of parents, I don't think my kids listen to half what I say. So I thought, well, I don't know, I'll write them a book, and maybe one day when they're 50, they'll read it and go, oh, look at that old man. Maybe I should have listened to him when I was younger. I don't know. But so yeah, I just wanted to write a letter to my daughters, and then it just evolved into this book. So it happened by accident. But as I've learned a lot and changed a lot over the last several years, and ultra running has become such a big part of my life, there have been so many life lessons that parallel that, like we've talked about. I wanted to relay that to my kids in some way. And so the book is, I write about a race, one of the races I ran. I picked the worst race that kind of where everything could go wrong, went wrong, like not all at once, but throughout the course of a race, everything just, there's a lot of problems and problem solving in that book. And then I step away from the race, and it's like I'm talking to my kids about, hey, this is how this might relate to life or whatever. And then I go back to the race. And so it's this back and forth format and layout of the book. So again, I hope they read it and I hope they get something out of it. But if just one person can get anything out of it, then again, it was worth it, because it took me 4 years to write it when I started. And then it became very different as I went along. When it first started out, it was nothing about an ultra race or anything like that. I was just writing to my kids. But I was writing about things that like I knew, but I wasn't living it myself. And then right when that process started, my writing changed. And it's funny because I can go back and look at my notes and I've saved everything from writing this book, because I'm not a writer, so I had no idea. I'm like writing things on the back of a napkin and, like notes and thoughts. Oh, this business card has 3 words that don't make any sense, but that was a thought I had about this book. So I saved all these things, and I can go back and look at them, and you can tell if I was in a good mood or a bad mood that day, because my language can sometimes be intense and you can hear it in the book. And so it's funny to go back and go, yeah, I was at this place at this point in writing the book, but 6 months later when I was writing about this, I was in a different place personally. So my writing, and you can see the writing kind of change with it. So it's interesting to go back and see how that it's kind of how that book evolved. And so.
I'll say so far from one of the things that really stuck out to me, again, you've talked so much about Leslie, is how you talk about her in the book. And I love how when you're addressing her to your kids, to your daughters, you're like, your mom is a rock star.
She is.
It just, I know, I'm reading it, I'm like, this is so authentic. And it's just so, I was like, this is what young women need to hear the men in their lives talk about. Other women, as we talked about, what you say really matters. The language that we speak about one another, even to ourselves, but really about one another. And I was like, but your daughters, they now have this forever. It's there. It's in a book.
You know?
And right. I'm like, what a gift that is. And like I said, like having met you at Redbeards and now just the way that you talk about Leslie, it's so authentic. It is so, like, how long have you guys been married?
So we've been married for, it's been 18 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So she's put up with me for a long time.
No, so
I'm surprised she's still around. I thought she'd be like, hey, look, it's been great, but I'm out, tired of you by now. But yeah, she's awesome.
So what did she think about this journey with this book?
She was like anything. She was really supportive, and she always has been. It was a long process to write. So I would write sections, and then I would take it to her. Hey, let me read you this. What do you think? How's it sound? And I would read it, and then we would change it. And it was a lot of that. I think I probably drove her crazy. I think I annoyed her to death, I'm sure. But she has always been really supportive. But she has a lot of input in the book because her perspective of an ultra race is very different than mine.
Sure.
But she's working just as hard as I am during a race, just in a different way. I mean, it's a constant, to crew someone in an ultra is not an easy task. I mean, that's you're either tracking them, preparing for seeing them shortly, or you're in the midst of dealing with them, which is a very short window of time that a lot is happening. It's really intense, and then they're gone. You want to try to keep these aid station stops as short as possible, but so it's just a lot of furious activity. Then they're gone, and then it's just 4 or 5 hours of just sitting there. And so there's downtime, but then it's crazy again. So she has her own little ups and downs riding the roller coaster of an ultra race, just in a different way. And so she had a lot of input in the book as far as from her perspective. And so a lot of the aid station talk and the writing when it comes to different points in the book were a lot of her ideas and her thoughts. Hey, this is my perspective. And her perspective was a lot better to write about than mine. It's mine as well, but it's good to get both because it's definitely a team effort.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you said it earlier. It's not an individual, and it's not. It's easy to think of it as an individual sport, but it's definitely a team concept that if you don't have, you're probably not going to see the finish line.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right support staff, for sure. So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to buy this book, which I highly encourage, I'm really enjoying reading it. Like it's one of those where you're like, it's packed full of information, but then at the same time, it's like what you said, there's a lot of life lessons as well. So, and I'm not an ultra marathoner, but I'm really enjoying the book.
That's awesome.
So
That's great.
How can somebody order the book?
So the book is available on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble website, iBooks, Kindle, really anywhere books are sold online, it's available. So there's a hardback, paperback, and an ebook version as well. So I'm in the process of working on an audiobook version. So, but I want to read it. I don't want to have someone read it for me. So I'm trying to figure out how to go through that process, the right way to do that and get that done. So that's the next step. But yeah, it's available anywhere books are sold. And
that's exciting.
So yeah, it's again, hopefully if there's one, and you don't have to be an ultra runner. That's the great thing about it.
I'm not, and I'm reading it. I'm like, this is a really good book.
Yeah, it's actually not about ultra running.
Right.
I'm writing about a race, but it's about so much more than that. So
for sure.
Hopefully there's someone that it can help in some way. And again, if it can, then it was worth it. So yeah, absolutely.
So obviously being an author, being a dad, being a husband, all those things, when you're not running, what fuels you? What are you passionate about?
My kids are always obviously my biggest passion in my life. When I'm not running or I'm not at work, I'm doing something with my family. I really don't have a lot of hobbies. I have a lot of things that I do enjoy. I love obviously watching college football or really any football. And it's not about, I played at Alabama, so I pull for them to win, but I just love the game. I love watching great athletes make great plays.
Sure.
And I can appreciate the athleticism and playing the game the way the game is supposed to be played. Because a lot of guys these days don't play the game the way it should.
Sure.
Just our society and everything has gotten a little bit softer. It's a little different. And you can argue and say, well, but it's safer. And it says, and I'm not arguing against that, but I get that. But you also want to make sure you don't lose. There's a lot of fundamental basics that you don't want to lose touch with. And I think sometimes we have a tendency to do that. So I really appreciate watching tough players make tough plays on a game. I can appreciate that just like I can watching someone grind their way to the end of an ultra race. Whether you win the race, that's great. But when you're the last person to finish, you are dead last. I appreciate that just as much, if not more, because you've been out there longer than anyone. You suffered longer than anybody did, a lot longer than the guy who won the race, or the girl who won the race. It's like the last person to come in is actually the most impressive to me. And I think a lot of people look at ultra running like that. It's one of those things that's what you actually appreciate. Who's the dude who's dead last? Because that might be the toughest person out here. So it's different. It's easy to look at the winner, but so I love watching sports. I love watching events where I can see people compete. But other than that, I used to play golf. I don't play golf anymore. I'd rather spend those 4 hours running, training, staying as far away from that old version of me as I can. And that's just my focus. So, yeah.
Greg, any final words of wisdom, my friends?
Just like I said earlier, I would just tell people, like Coach Dubose used to tell us in college, don't give up what you want most for what you want at the moment. Whatever it is you're wanting, get after it, go get it, go make it happen. Don't overthink it. Don't research and look at every aspect of it. Just go do it. And mess it up, screw it up at the beginning, whatever happens. Figure it out along the way, and you'll get there a lot faster than you think you will, for sure. So,
Greg, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
So much fun, and I thank you so much. And again, I cannot recommend this book enough. It's like you said, yes, it's about your race, yes, but it's more than that. It's about your story and the legacy that you've created. It's phenomenal. So I highly recommend this book, 10 out of 10. So Into the Storm by Greg Phillips. So thank you for taking time and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Make sure to go get that copy of Into the Storm, guys. I'm sure after hearing this podcast, you've already put that book in your cart, as you should. It is so worth the read, and so incredibly grateful for just being able to connect with Greg. And the only way that I even found out about this was because Redbeards in Mobile, they were hosting him, and I was like, he's a runner, he wrote a book, let's see who this is. And we got to meet up and chat and stuff, and it just went from there. And so Leslie, Greg, and family, you guys are absolutely incredible. I hope you know the impact that you're making and just the impact you've made on me. So congratulations on the book. Congratulations on all of the incredible journeys that you guys have been on. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for all of you guys. So again, thank you, Greg, for sharing your story, for sharing your heart, and for writing this book. It's absolutely incredible. Again, thank you to Gilliard Tech Services for all that he does for Run Your Story. Great. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you. And I say we because as a community, we all listen to this podcast and you make it possible. You've done such an amazing job with this website. And guys, if you need any website advice, go to Gilliard Tech Services. Reach out to him. He is on social media. And you can go to runyourstory.com. Also check him out there and at gilliardts.com as well. He would love to be able to help you. He loves helping the community. He loves helping people. And he loves building websites. So it's a perfect combination. So thank you, Gilliard Tech Services, for fueling this podcast, for believing in Run Your Story, and for believing in the community. To our Patreon family members, we thank you so much for supporting us. We absolutely love and adore you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do. We hope that you love this podcast as much as we do, and we could not be where we are without you. We truly mean that. Like, it is such a gift to know that we have people that pour into this podcast, and we know that you sacrifice. And so thank you so much. Whatever tier that you're on, we just cannot thank you enough for that. Like, it truly means more than you know. And I get emotional every time I think about it, because that means that there are people that believe in Run Your Story. And that is phenomenal. So thank you so much to our Patreon family members. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you like, share, comment. Make sure you pick up Greg's book as well. And thank you for allowing us to be a part of your story and for sharing your stories. All right, guys, until next time, go run your story, because every story needs to be heard.